She asked him to fix a gate. The rancher never expected the truth behind her words. The sun rising over the fields meant work, and the sun setting meant rest. Life on the ranch was steady, simple, and predictable. He liked it that way. One afternoon, while he was repairing a fence on the eastern edge of his land, he noticed a figure approaching. A woman, carrying a small bag, walked slowly along the dirt path leading to his ranch. She seemed hesitant, almost nervous. The rancher wiped the sweat from his forehead and called out a greeting. "Good afternoon," he said. "Can I help you?" I was wondering if you could help me with something. My gate is broken, and I can't keep my livestock in. I heard you're the one to talk to about things like this." "I can take a look, lead the way." As he worked, the rancher couldn't help but notice small things that seemed unusual. The woman's hands shook slightly, and she kept glancing toward the trees that bordered her land. Occasionally, she would bite her lip, then quickly look away. She wasn't asking for help in the usual way. There was a tension in her presence, something unspoken. The rancher was careful not to pry. People had their own stories, their own burdens. He focused on the gate, hammering and tightening the screws. Yet his curiosity grew with each passing moment. Something about this request felt different, though he couldn't put his finger on it. While he worked, the woman began to talk in fragments, offering small pieces of her life. She mentioned how her family had moved here a few years ago, that she enjoyed the quiet of the countryside, and that she often felt a little isolated. She thanked the rancher multiple times, each time with a nervous edge to her voice. "Most people would just leave it broken," she said. "I didn't know who else to ask." He had seen this before, people who were proud, who rarely asked for help, but when they did, it meant something. He didn't say much. Words were not always needed when work could speak for itself. As he finished tightening the hinge, he noticed something odd near the gate, a small patch of disturbed earth, as if someone had been digging there recently. He paused, leaning on his hammer. "Did you notice this?" he asked gently, pointing to the ground. The woman's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly looked away. "Oh, it's nothing, just some gardening," she said, her voice a little too quick. The rancher smiled faintly, but he didn't press. He had learned long ago that people reveal what they are ready to, and forcing the truth only made things worse. Still, a small seed of curiosity had taken root. Over the next hour, they worked together to secure the gate. The rancher explained a few simple tips on maintenance, making sure the hinges were strong and the latch would hold. She listened carefully, asking questions that seemed practical, but the rancher could tell there was something behind her questions, something she wasn't saying aloud. When the work was done, the rancher stepped back and admired the gate. It looked sturdy, functional, and ready to hold her livestock safely. The woman's face lit up with relief. "Thank you," she said, her voice calmer now. "I don't know what I would have done without your help." "It's what neighbors do for each other." As he turned to leave, she called out, "Wait, could I ask you something else?" He nodded. "I'll take a look," he said. That evening, as the rancher walked back to his own property, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman and the gate. Something about the day had unsettled him. It was just a gate, he told himself, just a simple repair. But the way she had asked, the way she had looked at him, it suggested there was more beneath the surface. The next morning, the rancher returned to the north side of her property. As he inspected the fence, he noticed small details that confirmed his suspicion: footprints that didn't match the livestock, marks on the trees, and signs of recent activity that seemed out of place. It was as if someone or something had been there, hidden, watching or waiting. The rancher paused, considering what he had found. He felt a responsibility, not just as a worker fixing a gate, but as someone who might help uncover the truth. He had lived long enough to know that the smallest details often led to the biggest discoveries. Later that day, he mentioned it casually to the woman. She tensed slightly but listened as he described what he had seen. Her reaction was subtle but telling. Her hands clutched the bag she carried, and she looked toward the horizon as if gathering courage. I didn't want to trouble you," she said softly. I didn't know who else to turn to." Sometimes, a simple favor could reveal a deeper story, a truth that had been buried for a long time. By the end of the day, the gate was fixed, the fence inspected, and the rancher had more questions than answers. Yet, there was a growing sense of connection between him and the woman, a silent understanding that what had started as a simple request might lead to something far more important. As he walked home that evening, the rancher looked back at her property. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the fields. The gate stood strong, a small symbol of stability, but also a reminder that even ordinary tasks could uncover extraordinary truths. He didn't know what the future held, but he felt certain of one thing. Sometimes, helping someone with a small act of kindness could open the door to discovering the stories people kept hidden. And in that quiet, unassuming moment, he realized that life on the ranch, no matter how routine, could still hold unexpected mysteries. The rancher returned to his own land, his mind racing with possibilities. He had fixed a gate, yes, but he had also glimpsed a fragment of a story that was waiting to be told. The questions lingered and the answers would come, but only in their own time. For now, he rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring another day of work, another day of routine, and perhaps another step toward uncovering the truth that lay behind a simple request. And for the first time in a long while, he felt the quiet excitement of a mystery unfolding in the very land he had always called home. The next morning, the rancher woke early as usual, the sun just beginning to peek over the horizon. The events of the previous day were still fresh in his mind. He had fixed the gate, checked the fence, and noticed the subtle clues that suggested something unusual was happening on the woman's property. The feeling of curiosity had grown overnight, and he knew he could not ignore it. He mounted his old horse and rode slowly along the boundary of her land, scanning the fields and the wooded area at the far edge. The ground showed signs of disturbance from the day before, and he traced the footprints carefully. They were not livestock tracks, nor were they clearly human, at least not ordinary human. Something about the spacing and pattern of the prints made him pause. When he reached the spot where he had noticed the disturbed earth, he saw it more clearly now. The dirt had been freshly turned, and there were small scraps of fabric caught on the roots of a tree. He bent down to examine them. The scraps looked like remnants of a torn bag, perhaps accidentally left behind. His heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but from the anticipation of discovering the story behind these details. The woman arrived quietly behind him. "I see you've noticed it," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of tension that made the rancher turn and look at her fully. "Yes," he said carefully. "I think there's more going on here than just a broken gate. I found this situation a few weeks ago, and I didn't know who to ask for help. I thought it might be dangerous if people knew. I discovered that a young calf had gone missing from my neighbor's farm," she said. "I tried to follow the tracks, but they led toward my land, and I didn't know what to do. I was afraid someone might think I was responsible, so I kept it to myself." A missing calf could mean trouble, either for her or for the community, but he kept his voice calm. "Do you know where it might be now?" he asked. She shook her head. "I only know that it came close to my property. I wanted to fix the gate so it couldn't wander any further, but I didn't think anyone could help me find it. I was afraid I might get in trouble if I tried to tell someone. It's not your fault, and we can help the calf. We just need to be careful and patient." After a few tense minutes, they heard a faint sound, a soft bleating coming from the edge of the woods. The woman's face lit up with hope, and the rancher signaled her to follow him carefully. They approached a small clearing and saw the calf, trapped in a shallow ditch near some rocks. It had clearly been struggling to get free for some time, and its legs were tangled in a patch of thorny bushes. The woman's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Oh, thank goodness," she whispered. "I didn't know if I would find it in time." It nuzzled against the woman, sensing her relief and care. The rancher watched silently, feeling a quiet satisfaction. A simple act of helping her with a gate had led to something far more important. He had not only repaired a piece of property but also helped save a living creature and eased the worry of a neighbor. Once the calf was safely back in the pen, the woman turned to him. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "If you hadn't agreed to help with the gate, I might never have found it in time. I thought this was just about a gate, but it was more than that. I was afraid to admit it, but I see now that asking for help isn't a weakness. It's how we take care of each other that matters." She began to share more of her story, the challenges she faced after moving to the countryside, her fears of not fitting in, and her hope that things would improve. The rancher listened without judgment. He offered advice when needed, but mostly he provided a steady presence, showing that she was not alone. For her, it was a relief to have someone trustworthy by her side. For the rancher, it was a reminder that life on the ranch was not only about work and animals, it was about people and the connections we build along the way. Word spread quietly in the small town about the calf and the rancher's help. People admired the way he had handled the situation, calm, patient, and compassionate. The woman also gained confidence, realizing that seeking help was a sign of courage, not weakness. By the end of the week, the gate was strong, the fences were secure, and the calf was safe. The woman felt a deep sense of gratitude, and the rancher felt a quiet pride in having helped someone in need. But more than that, both realized that sometimes a simple request, like fixing a gate, could lead to the uncovering of truths that mattered far more than the task itself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the rancher and the woman stood near the newly fixed gate. The air was warm and the fields glowed in golden light. She turned to him and said, "I think I understand now. It wasn't just a gate I needed fixed. It was the courage to face the truth and the support to do the right thing." Sometimes, the smallest things open the door to the biggest discoveries. He thought about how ordinary moments like repairing a gate could unexpectedly lead to acts of kindness, moments of courage, and connections that mattered deeply. For the woman, life felt lighter. She knew she could face challenges with honesty and that there were people she could trust. The gate, now strong and secure, became a symbol, not just of safety for her animals, but of the truth revealed and the support she had received. The rancher continued his daily routines, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that the work he did was not just about fences, gates, and fields. It was about being present for others, noticing the small details, and acting with care when it mattered most. Life on the ranch remained steady and simple, but the story of the gate and the truth behind it became a quiet reminder that even ordinary days could bring extraordinary experiences. And so, the gate stood firm, the calf was safe, and the woman had found both help and courage. The rancher had learned that the smallest acts of kindness could uncover truths that changed lives, proving that patience, observation, and empathy were as important as any skill with tools or animals. In the end, it was more than just a gate. It was a doorway to understanding, trust, and the quiet power of human connection.